So here we are, another week in the cognitive development process, and this week we're working on language. I have someone here that is, say hi. Yes, he is very interested in today's topic because he talks so much. So I'm not going to get too deep into the actual language components because I know that Dr. Laughlin really nails this, like this is her jam. So I'm not going to muddy any waters up in that area. So we're just going to use this lecture to work through the lab, because the lab that is nested within your workbook could get a little complicated. And I tried to simplify that as much as I could. But I thought working through it together for some of the components of it might be useful. Okay, so the first one that we're going to go through, so you have a PowerPoint that's also in the same folder. So we're going to go through and we're going to do some basic reading comprehension. So you are just going to read the sentence. Beginning ones, first 10 are simple sentences, and the next 10 are complex sentences. You're going to read them once at your natural pace. You are going to time yourself for it, though. So you are going to time, let me get the time when you start reading, and stop the time when you end reading. Record your time. So you're going to go through each one and answer the sentence on it. You cannot go back to reread it. So you read it, answer the question. The questions are going to test literal comprehension, inference, and vocabulary. So it should be pretty simple. But for now, I want you to go head over into the PowerPoint and go through that first phase for simple sentences and complex sentences, answering each one. Go ahead. I'll wait here. All right, so you should have gone through that, and what this lab is going to show is basically simple sentences are harder, or complex sentences are harder to process. And when we talk about the working memory that we have, that is going to limit the comprehension that is available for this. So if we're talking about early childhood education, simplify language when you're teaching. So when you say the dog ran versus the dog that was scared by the loud noise ran away, young children are going to have a limited working memory to process. So what you'd want to do is you're going to break these complex ideas into simple sentences. Instead of, because it's raining and the ground is wet and slippery, we can't go outside to play today, you could say, it's raining, the ground's wet, it's slippery, so we'll play inside today. And then you're going to gradually increase the complexity as the child develops. So 2 to 3, simple, subject, verb, object. Ages 4 to 5, you might be able to add in one conjunction, and but. And around 5 to 6, you're going to introduce because or if-then situations. Okay, so the next lab, let me pull it back up to the beginning. I apologize, I have a giant sheet in front of me. Okay. Next one is going to get a little bit more confusing. So this one gets weird. So this section, this next example, is going to be also in the PowerPoint, and it's going to test what something is called garden path sentences. And it's the idea that there's this ambiguity effect. So the idea is you're reading this sentence and you think that it's taken in you one direction, and bam, takes you in another direction. And it requires you to reanalyze where you think it's going. So an example, very classic, is the horse raced past the barn fell, right? So a lot of these sentences can be fixed with proper grammar, adding in some commas, semicolons, whatever. But that is not the purpose of this exercise. So when you first hear the horse raced past the barn fell, Your first interpretation, which is wrong, is the horse raced past the barn, the main clause. And then that little sentence or word fell comes at the end, and you're like, gosh darn, that doesn't make sense. So the correct interpretation, which requires rereading, the horse raced past the barn fell. So the horse that someone raced past that barn fell down. Okay? So that is what you're going to work through. So what you're going to do is you're going to head over to that PowerPoint. You're going to read the 15 garden path sentences, and you're just going to read them once. When you reach the end, you have to decide if it makes sense. If you're confused, you can reread it. Okay? You have to record how many times you reread it. And then answer some questions about it, figure out how difficult was it to understand versus did you need to reread. Okay? So why don't you head on over there and see what you can come up with. I'll wait. All right. So how'd you do? It was tricky, right? It's really tough to have your brain recalculate and process things a little bit different. So once this lab is going to show is that ambiguous language is often confusing. So you have to commit to, our brains, we commit to interpretations, then you have to revise them. So when you're working with early childhood education, you want to avoid ambiguous pronouns with young children. So something ambiguous might be, John and Tom went to the park, he played on the swings. Well, who the heck is he? Is it Tom? Is it John? Is it Bobby from down the road? You know, so you want to make it clear. John and Tom went to the park. Tom played on the swings. Specific reference, no confusion. You want to make sure that your instructions are clear and explicit. Avoid the ambiguous. Put the toys in the box on the shelf. Which box? The one already on the shelf, or do I put the box on the shelf? Put the toys in the box on the shelf. So, to make it clear, say first, put the toys in this box, then put the box on the shelf. This is sequential, clear steps that makes it easier for those little ones to really process. And you have to recognize when children misunderstand due to ambiguity. So let's say the teacher's like, hey, can you get the book on the table? Child brings the book that's sitting on the table. The teacher meant book about tables, right? Do you see the difference there? Book on the table, but it's actually a book about tables. So you have to be super, super specific in your language. All right, are you ready for the next one? Okay. So we get 2 garden path sentences. So now this one, first one we did in PowerPoint. This one is going to be on your own. This is going to be in the worksheet. You are going to compare garden path sentences versus normal sentences. So you're going to receive, I think, 6 different pairs, and you're going to go through and just determine which one was easier to understand. If your brain is, the average processing brain, spoiler, it's going to be the normal version. So you're just going to read through that and do a little reflection on it, a little analysis on it, and figure out, why it is and how to apply it going forward. So go ahead, head to your worksheet and start working on that. And I will wait here. Okay, you're back. Awesome. So same idea here for the ambiguity, right? This should make it clear, give you a better example of what is, a good way to explain things versus a not so good way to record things. Okay, so we are flying through this. Feeling pretty good so far? Okay, so phase 3, we are going to look at the effects on comprehension. We are going to discover how prior knowledge is going to facilitate or disrupt your comprehension. So this is also going to be in your workbook. So do not cheat ahead on it. They're just small passages. So you're going to read them. No title, no introduction. It is intentionally vague And you're going to be unclear about the who's, the what's, the alls of it, and you're going to struggle to understand. So you're going to answer a couple comprehension questions, and then you're going to rate the difficulty. Okay, so go ahead and read that, just the no context passage. So if you're scrolling on your computer, keep that at the very bottom of the screen. Okay, go read it. I'll wait here. I'll sip my coffee while you do it. You're back. Okay. So, how was it? Did you grasp what was happening? How are you on the answers? Okay, so now what I want you to do is you are going to go back to the worksheet. Hopefully you didn't cheat ahead, right? And you are going to reread it with the heading, washing clothes. All right, go back, read it. We'll reconvene in 3 seconds. All right. So, did that make things easier for you to understand? Did you grasp it a little bit better? All right. I want you to go through, and you don't have to answer the questions on it. This is just for a thought process on you to go read the other passages. Make sure you scroll so you don't cheat and get the actual context underneath it, just to see the difference in how you feel about it. Okay? Go read those. We'll come back here. All right. So I think this one is pretty cut and dry in how you should apply that in everyday life. The idea is that if you're just going to throw something at someone without any information about it or what its application is or even what the heck we're talking about, that's going to make it less successful in understanding and working through everything. Okay? So when you are working with anyone, really, this is applicable to anybody, start them up with a little information ahead of time. Those naive quizzes that we do at the beginning of each week, that's what this is, to prime you, to get you ready. So get you to understand what we're looking at and maybe why we're looking at it. All right? We feeling good so far? Okay. So that was the context questions. Now we go through all those. Reflection questions. And now the last section is the inference generation, where you are going to read between the lines. So this one's going to take place in the PowerPoint, so you'll hop over there when I get done explaining. So you're going to read a very short passage, maybe 3 to 5 sentences. You're going to read it at your normal pace, and do not take notes. I don't think you'll need to. And then you're going to answer some comprehension questions about the information. And you are going to, when asked those questions, identify if those are explicit questions, meaning the information is readily available in the passage that you read, or inference questions, meaning you have to derive that information from it because it's not specifically said. Okay, so I want you to go over, I want you to work through that last section in the PowerPoint, and you're going to, write down the different, whether it was inference, whether it was explicit, and how you felt about it. Go ahead, get on. You're back. So you worked through it, you made little notes about explicit versus inference, and you could see the difference between, or the difficulty in inferring things. You calculate your scores, you figure out what was best, and you're just going to look a little bit on, how you do on those. So this happens every day in our day-to-day life, right? You make causal inferences. John put on his coat, he walked outside. So the inference that you're going to make is John walked outside because it was cold or he was leaving, right? Instrumental inferences. Mary pounded the nail into the wall. So you're going to infer that Mary used a hammer, even though that's not stated. You're not going to think that she used, a bottle, her fist, anything like that. You're going to assume that it was a hammer, unless Mary has bigger problems than needing something nailed in. Emotional inferences. Sarah opened the gift and her eyes lit up. So we infer emotions all the time based on facial expressions and verbal, nonverbal cues. So you would infer that Mary's happy or she's excited. We have spatial inferences. Tom walked into the kitchen and he opened the refrigerator. The refrigerator is in the kitchen, right? We're making that assumption. There could be those little fridges that we keep. Like, I want to put one in my office, get some cold drinks, maybe a Celsius when I get a little, sleepy. Anyway, you would assume, for the most point, that the fridge was in the kitchen that he walked into. And temporal influences. So after studying all night, Jake fell asleep during the exam. So you would infer that the studying happened before the exam, okay? So you will take some time now. You will go through the workbook and, finish all those analysis questions, looking at what was hardest for you, what helped you the most in each of these different things. So you're going to go through that. You're going to come back here, and we're going to do one last little chat about it and its implications in the world that you will be entering. That is early childhood education. So go off, complete the workbook, and then come back here, and we will chat about it. Okay, go. Okay, so we talked about some of the other things. You just finished your reflection, so let's talk about the ones that we haven't talked about in language on a greater scale. So the inference in younger children. Okay, so the lab is going to show you that we automatically infer information that is not stated, but young children need to learn this skill. It's not something that we automatically just pop out and we're like, we can infer. It'd be creepy if it happened, but I guess cool. So if you are an early childhood educator, you need to explicitly teach inference during read-alouds. So let's say from a story. Billy saw dark clouds and he ran outside. So your scaffolding might look like this. Why did Billy run outside? The book doesn't say it, but what do you think? Right, he probably thought it would rain. Oh, he ran inside. That changed the whole story. Eek. Billy saw dark clouds and he ran inside. He probably thought it would rain. So you made an inference, something that the book didn't tell us. Okay, so you want to use think alouds to model this inference. So another example, while reading, the birthday cake had 5 candles. You, as the teacher, would be thinking out loud, the book doesn't say how old the child is, but there are 5 candles. Can I then infer that the child is in fact turning 5 years old? How did I figure that out? Right? So these are all different ways to do it. You could also do inference with pictures. So show a picture of a child with muddy shoes and dirty hands, a soccer ball nearby, and a smiley face. So some questions you could ask. What do you think happened? Kid played soccer. How do you know? Muddy, ball, happy. Did the picture show the kid playing soccer? Nope. So you inferred it. Good job, right? So these are all the steps that we have to do. So the biggest takeaway that you should learn from this lab is that we have working memory limitations. So working memory is going to affect comprehension, but individual differences are real. And especially for early childhood educators, you want to accommodate that limited working memory within the young children. So the problem would be, put your coat on the cubby, wash your hands at the sink, and then sit at the red table for a snack. So that's 3 steps. That is 3 steps too many for a 3-year-old, right? So how do you do it? You break it up. First, put your coat away. Wait. Good. Now, go wash your hands. Wait. Great. Now come on over and sit for a snack. 1 step at a time. You also want to use visual supports to lessen that working memory load. Instead of remembering sequence, put a picture schedule on the wall. Put step-by-step visual cards up. Physical cues such as hook names and name labels or code hooks. So this is going to reduce the demands on the working memory. It's going to support the comprehension, and it's going to increase independence for these little ones, right? You also want to make sure you are identifying these individual differences. Now, some little children can handle put your folder in the backpack, hang up your backpack, and line up by the door, those 3 steps. But others will need that pause in between each step. And understanding that this is normal behavior. This is not bad behavior. They aren't purposefully acting out by not completing the subsequent steps. It just might be that their working memory cannot process it. Okay? So make sure when you are doing vocabulary instruction, you pre-read, teach 3 to 5 different words, use friendly definitions, show pictures, and really understand that each child is going to be different. That's the biggest thing for all of this course, right? To understand that each child is different. Each person is different. We are taking all these different components from our life that we might not even realize we're taking, and it's making us who we are. So when you're working with little children, medium children, big kids, adults, understand that we're all human and have a little grace, that we are all working through things a little bit differently. All right. Exam this week, only 2 out of 5 questions. Okay? But great work so far, and talk soon.